And now, from beyond our dimension, this is the JeffMara podcast. Here's Jeff.
My guest is Rachelle Gehman, psychic medium who had a near-death experience in 1994 that profoundly redirected her life toward fulfilling her life's purpose. Rachelle, thank you for joining me and welcome.
Thank you so much, Jeff. It's so good to be here. I'm really excited to be here. Thank you.
Well, we're excited to have you. And if you don't mind, Rachelle, let's start on the day you died and go from there.
Yeah, thanks so much. Just thinking back about that, I was actually outside, and it was in a period of time where I was kind of in this place where my life wasn't going the direction that I really wanted to go. I had gotten married, and I was actually married to my husband, and it was a very toxic, abusive relationship. And I actually had gotten married. I was pregnant with my son, and it was just a really difficult time. And I didn't know a direction, but I felt like I was really committed to my marriage. And my mother happened to be a theology student, and she said, it's okay to leave this marriage. And I really didn't feel like I could at the time. And, and the reason that's important is because there's a lot of people that feel victimized. And I tell that because I want to make sure that people feel empowered. And when I went through that process, it was a very dark place where I was at. I had lost part of my soul. And my mother was a theology student. And why that's important is because she said, it's all right. And let me help you. I'm going to go through the Bible and look through all of these different, maybe Bible verses, and see where it's okay to do that. I felt very strongly about my commitment to God. And anyway, so she brought 11 pages worth of notes, which still didn't, kind of register with me. And so one day I was out doing landscaping, basically. I was outside, I was planting flowers and so forth, and we were in a home, and my husband he was not home that day. He was doing things for work, and the neighbor was outside, and we were both doing work outside, landscaping and planting flowers and so forth. And my son was over at the neighbor's. And what happened was I looked over, well, all of a sudden I felt something on my arm and I got stung. And I looked over, and it was like this black wasp. And it was like a tarantula wasp that stung me. And it really hurt. And I didn't know what to do about it. It just really hurt. So I was outside with a neighbor, and she said, I told her that I just gotten stung. And then just like a few minutes later, I started having this itching underneath my feet, and it was between the skin and the bone. And I didn't know what to do. And I ran inside, tried to run water over it, and it didn't stop. It was just horrific. And I happened to call my husband, and I said, I don't know what's happening. I just got stung, and my feet are itching. I don't know what to do. And he said, get to the hospital. You're having an allergic reaction, because I'd never been allergic to anything before. And so I went back outside, and I went to tell the neighbor that I was going to go to the hospital or drive myself to the hospital. And she took one look at me and she said, you're not driving yourself. I am driving you. And she put the kids in the car. And I got into the car, and we went to the emergency room. And she was a nurse, so she knew exactly that I was in anaphylactic shock. And of course, I didn't know that, but I was ready to drive. And, I had martial arts experience. I had, breath control and so forth because of my spiritual background, uh, growing up in a spiritual family and so forth. And so I really went to this place where I tried to keep myself calm, and my breathing started to close and so forth. And we got to the hospital, and I walked in, and she walked in with me and told them that I was in anaphylactic shock. And I said, I think I'm going to faint. So I at least made it into the emergency room, and they put me on a gurney. And the last thing I remember them saying was, I heard them call out my vitals, which was 90/50, which was my blood pressure at that time. And then after that, I went into this dark void. And, recently, the key is about this, Jeff, is that I I didn't know. I had actually suppressed this NDE, okay? And the reason it's important before I go into that other stuff is because I started with being a psychic medium. I started hanging around the IANDS group, which is the International Association of Near-Death Studies. And I didn't think that I had an NDE. I mean, I suppressed it. I didn't even talk about it or anything. And I really didn't have any memory of it. And so a lot of the memory of what happened when I passed was kind of blocked out because I had even blocked out my NDE. And so what I did was I started hanging around these people and they were talking about it. And then it started dawning on me that, oh my gosh, I did have an NDE. And so what was important about that is I really had to go back and because I blacked out and nothing was coming to me and I had suppressed it for so many years, I went to a friend of mine who does regression and does hypnotherapy. And so we actually went in and saw what happened. And so I wanted to interject that, I guess, a little bit because of that.
Sure.
Uh, and so when what happened was when I was laying on that gurney and through the regression, what I saw was a hand that came and I reached out and I took it and it was so loving. And I reached out and took it and I went into this expansive area and it was dark. It was, black. It wasn't like evil. It was more that it was like this tunnel that was so expansive that there were no walls or anything. And in the front was this like snowy white picture. And I there were three guides with me. I know that. And I knew that at the time that there were three guides with me. There were like two on the right and one on the left. And then what happened is the black turned into orange, but it was still that snowy picture and it was a round kind of light. And I immediately I knew kind of where I was because of the fact of my spirituality. I knew I was in that, what they call tunnel or this expansive area. And I started really almost negotiating and I couldn't stop talking. It was like, you can't take me now. I can't end my life here. I felt like I couldn't end my life in that moment. And one was because I wanted to raise my son. And I felt like if I didn't raise my son, he would not know who I was truly. And the other part was that I didn't feel like was, uh, I was so victimized at the time that I hadn't really, met my life purpose or did what I came here to do. And so it was almost like a course correction. And what they started to tell me, and they comforted me and told me that they were holding me here until they got the body, until my body was ready again. And and then I also saw flashes of things, and I don't know. I really don't know if I had a choice that, whether I was going back or not. I just was incessant and wanted to go back. And so for me, that was the key. I really wanted to go back. And I don't know if other NDEers have that choice, but I knew that I wasn't on the path and the love and just the peace and the comfort I felt in that moment. And then when the body was ready, and I don't know how long I was out, I started to come back into my body again. And I remember that. I remember that piece very vividly. And I laid there for a while, just like absorbing all that peace and all that contentment. And then I finally decided to open my eyes. And the nurse said to me, "We almost lost you." And she said, "It took us 3 epinephrines with a saline wash to revive you. Next time, you're not going to have that kind of time." And it was pretty significant, and it was for the right after that, after coming home, I want to say for a couple months, I was just like deer in the headlights. I was taking all this medication and so forth, and I was really doing a life review of, this is not the way that I wanted to live and so forth. And I made a decision to leave my husband. And the reason I say that is that part of my work is contribution and service. And I'm not promoting divorce in any way. What I'm promoting is if people are feeling victimized, that, I want to get them to a place of empowerment. And, it takes a lot. When you're dealing with, people that just are not healed and can be, really feeding off your energy and things like that. And so as a result of that, I was in sales and so forth, and I kept going, but it was certainly a very pivotal moment that got me on track to start to embrace my spirituality and then start to really explore my gifts. I had gifts when I was a little girl. I turned them off. My mother was very aware of them, but she didn't know what to do with them. I mean, she was a theology student, but it was my father's side where my aunt was a psychic medium and she worked with me when I was a little girl and so forth. But I also wanted a sense of belonging too. So this stuff was not normal. And so I turned it off and I became, socialized. I went through school and got my degree and all of that, and then and everything. And so when I got to the other side of this, I started really reviewing my life and the direction that I wanted to go. And I was also told that I had work to do and that there was definitely going to be some level of contribution to humanity. And I didn't understand it at that time, but as the years went by, it unfolded for me, and that's what happened. And one of the things that I know that I experienced, and I think every NDE or experiences, is the love that's out there and the essence of our spirit and that feeling of oneness. And I just feel so strongly that if I don't believe that people have to have an NDE to really embrace that. We spend a lot of time being socialized and being in our logical brain, and it's really the mind heart connection that is so important, and that if we can just realize that learning about energy, frequency, vibration, feeling it around the body, coming fully into our body so we're fully grounded to the earth, having that sense of belonging, and then also using our body as a barometer so we can sense energy, frequency, and vibration, And I hear a lot of people say that they're empathic. Um, and I guess what I want to say is people that are empathic, they can sense energy, but they don't master their own energy signature. And so that's one of the things that I help people with is mastering their own energy signature so they don't cower from this energy or coming at them. Or, it's about noticing it, going to neutral, not taking it on, but also mastering your signature so you're actually projecting your light forward and your love forward, to people who really need it. Because when people actually, what I've learned is as they come into our space, there are things that they receive if we're in a love vibration. And so that's kind of what, my mission has been, helping people with moving out of toxicity and abuse, healing from trauma, because that's what I went through. And so getting through that trauma, releasing it, transmuting it, and then because my experience was all about that, and I couldn't even talk to anybody in the beginning, because I was just I was just like in this life review for a couple of months, and which direction should I go? And I didn't know how to process it, and I certainly didn't talk to anybody about it, and I didn't really even know that it was an NDE, and I kind of shoved it, you know, I kind of shoved it. I really buried it until I started hanging out with these people, and it was just amazing that they opened me up to that, you know?
How did you start hanging out with him in the first place?
Oh, that's a really good question. So what happened was I was working with this one woman who was helping me kind of put things together from a service business perspective and guiding me and teaching me how to really get my name out there and so forth. And she happened to be involved with the IANDS group. And she started introducing me to the different, I guess, chapters, if you will, of people in IANDS. And I met Sean Lether in the Hawaiian IANDS group and went to their sharing group and so forth. And then I went to their annual conference, and I actually was a vendor there doing readings and even promoting my book and so forth. And that was last year in September. And I didn't even, back then, I was still in denial about my NDE. And one day it just hit me and it was like, oh my gosh, I did have an NDE. And so it was, uh, so that's what happened. And I started hanging around it. I started listening to their stories, and it's like, yeah, this was near death. I don't know if I fully passed. They didn't share that with me in the hospital, but I felt like I did. But I wasn't floating around in the room. I was more in this expansive area immediately, which was something. And then after that, or before that, excuse me, before that, I had a very spiritually transformative experience out in Mount Shasta, where I was meditating out there, and these higher beings came. They were like ascended masters, and all my life, I had tried so hard at everything, and and I had never fully accepted myself as being good enough. And they came in and um, they showed me that I was loved. And I wasn't loved by performance. I wasn't, because I had been in sales for so long. I wasn't loved by doing, that I was loved by just being. And that was huge for me. That dropped me to my knees. And what I realized was that they just didn't feel that way about me, that they felt about like that with everyone in the plant on the planet, that everyone was loved and everyone was good enough, and that, you know, I just had that spiritually transformative experience where I just knew that, and how we were celebrated, and that um, none of that, what we've been told is kind of a lie, that and all these human constructs that we believed in, from an economic perspective and all of that, just really, uh, I started looking at things totally differently and realized that it's not these hierarchies of, different, like in corporations, they have, the CEOs and the different structures and the different hierarchies, and we have that in the church and all of that. And it's really not about that. It's really about how all of us are individualized expressions of love and of God. And that what happens is we have the essence of our spirit, and then we have our life stories and our traumas and how we're socialized and educated, that kind of becomes a blanket over the essence of our spirit. And if we can kind of pull all that away and start to really embrace, the essence of who we are, that individualized expression, and that is made of love. That's where I really think that we are going, from an evolutionary process, and these hierarchies will kind of fall away. And that at least that's my hope. I, you know, I feel that strongly that we're coming into that.
Are you saying that the lie is the hierarchy and the truth is we're all equal?
Exactly. Exactly. The hierarchy is a human construct and it's a structure. And I understand that they feel that structure is necessary, but I also believe that we as a human race are in a place where we can claim our sovereignty and our freedom, and that we can be responsible to and be loving and kind, where it will not be chaotic, where it will be, an order of love and peace and joy. And I feel like the human consciousness is evolving to that. It's just that people, I believe that we are going to get there, and we're not quite there yet, but I feel that that's the evolutionary process that's going to occur.
You mentioned earlier that your aunt assisted you when you were young, and your aunt is a famous psychic medium and remote viewer. Can you tell
Mhm.
us a little more about her?
Yeah, she was amazing. She just recently passed. My aunt is Reverend Ann Gehman. She did a lot of work with Stanford University with her program, and working with the CIA with and Rollins College with parapsychology and paranormal activity, as well as uh, remote viewing. And she was responsible for helping the military with their remote viewing program. She was also hired by corporations where they asked her to, for example, oil companies, and they would ask her to point out, for example, on a map where to drill. And 26 out of the 29 places where she told them to drill uh, they ended up striking oil. So she was very good at what she did, and very well known in the psychic medium community. She also was a medium in Lilydale, New York, and then also in the Washington D.C. area, and was very prominent. In the political arenas as well. And her work, she devoted her life to spiritualism and the movement of spiritualism, and knowing that there is no death, that we're either in the body or out of the body, and that our loved ones are always with us and that they care for us and they work overtime on the other side to create harmony, making sure that we don't destroy ourselves. And as a medium, you kind of live on this fringe of, you live on this fringe of uh, the the spirit world and humanity, and then being able to serve at that. And so there is all these things that occur that look like they're wild or crazy and they're really natural. And that's one of the things that she wanted to really explain, is that these things, moving things with your mind, she could bend spoons with her mind. I mean, it was incredible. And we would do table tipping and all of these different things with physical mediumship, and she believed in the kinesiology piece, and she worked very well with it and didn't have a lot of blocks in that area. And as a result of that, she became very well known in that, and so revered, so so revered. And she was just the sweetest, you know. Yeah.
Well, you wrote a book titled The Heartfelt Medium, A Guide to Developing Your Mediumship Naturally.
Mhm.
So, can you give us some tips today about how to naturally develop our own medium abilities?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for asking. And why I wrote the book is because when I when I really started to dive in this, people would say, I'd say, "Well, how do you connect with spirit?" And they'd say, "Oh, I just do." And I thought that was so unfair, and so that's why I wrote the book. And really how you connect is um you really relax your body, you connect and you ground, and you really relax the body and imagine white light going up through your body, and you really become essence. You have to become essence. You have to get to that place where you're pure essence, where you're not in your ego. You've stripped away all your life stories, all your traumas, all of that, right? And you're pure essence. So you look for that,
Well,
and
what
then
is
you
that?
connect.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but what does that feel like to be in your essence?
Yeah, so it feels like you're in this love vibration. That's the only way that I can describe it. Like it's a love vibration. The energy shifts in the body. So and it's really important that we are in the body so we can feel that shift in energy. And it's a relaxed, peaceful feeling. And when you think about meditation, meditation, they say, is an act in doing nothing. And I've heard that over and over again. But for me, it's really connecting to that love vibration, that authenticity. And when you feel that within you and you're fully grounded in your body, then you can go up and connect to God's source and you bring that down into your heart and you send it out into the room and you feel, just like there's a vibratory complex, right? And there's waves, and you can actually feel that wave. The wave, if you send it out into the room, the love, you can actually feel it coming back to you. And it's ever so subtle. And so that's the key, is to start to be able to train your mind and your body to pick up on the subtleties of the changes of the vibration. That's the key. And so as it comes to you and you feel it and you start to blend with it, and and then all of a sudden, the thing is that most people feel that mediumship, which it can occur, that all of a sudden you're seeing an apparition or, like kind of a hologram of a spirit in front of you of a loved one. Well, that's more physical mediumship, but most of the time it's mental mediumship. So you have the different clairs. You have the clairvoyant. A clairvoyant is where you're clear seeing. Well, what does that mean? You're actually seeing it in your imagination. So it gets dropped in. It's where you're thinking of nothing. You go to this place where you're just neutral and you're calm and you connect with that vibration, and it's very peaceful and very loving, and all of a sudden something comes in and it drops in, and it's very fast because the spirit world is at a higher vibration. Okay, so the earth is at like 8.32 hertz, we're at 65 hertz, and then the spirit world or the angels are at 400 hertz and above. So when it comes in very fast. And for us sometimes to fully digest it, because our bodies are dense and so forth, it might take a little bit, but we have to allow it to come in and we have to train our mind to grab onto it. Once we grab onto it and you know what you saw, that is from spirit. And we all have this. We just don't realize it's spirit talking to us. We can be in the middle of, we could have a shower. A shower is a very easy time for this to come in because we're just relaxed and all of a sudden something comes in. That's spirit. If all of a sudden you're just thinking of somebody that just popped into your head and they're in spirit, they're coming in to say hello or whatever. And what happens is when when that picture comes in, the key is that you describe it and you deliver that. And that's the evidence of the person coming through from spirit. But the key is this is what happens to people when they first start. It's very common, and this is where I work with people, is that your logical brain wants to come in and make sense of it. And when that happens, or did I just see that? Did I just hear that? You want to make sense of it. And I'm telling you that you did. And the hard part is being able to deliver that, to say it. And so what I have a lot of my students do is that when they first start is write it down, because if you saw it and you can describe the scene or whatever you heard or whatever you're seeing, write it down, then you know it happened. You know, it happened in your imagination, and that is spirit. And it's really a flow. And that's what comes in, and then you start to practice. And I do have a development circles on Sunday night. It's actually free from 6:30 to 8:30 Eastern. And we have people that show up that just want readings, and I have students there that read. And it's really, if people want to get on my mailing list, I always send out the code for people to a Zoom meeting to join. And there are people that just want reads. And so we break up in groups and we practice. And it really takes practicing. You know, you can't drive a car by reading a book, right? We got to get out there and we got to practice. So I provide that development circle for people to work. And I always have usually a topic that I discuss that will help people, and everything. And I also have a corresponding workbook that helps with working with the heartfelt medium as well. So you can write things down and work with them. And spirit, how they communicate is another piece, because it's not just dropping in the information. That's just one component, but it's also about they use associations. And so you have to be able to kind of, put all that together and then also be able to deliver it. And spirit always, they always empower us. They never take away our free will ever. They always speak in healing, guidance, upliftment, and reassurance. And they will never, ever uh, uh, interfere with our free will. But it's also, people have to understand that you have dominion over this. Because when you start to do this, fear can creep in and you want to stay in the love vibration, right?
Mhm.
And so the key is that, you know, you have to also, until you feel comfortable, you also have to put boundaries, just like boundaries with having a healthy relationship. You can put boundaries with spirit and work with your spirit guides regarding that. For example, when I first started, I didn't want to be bothered from 10 o'clock at night till 6 in the morning, because they like to come in because we're so relaxed. Well, that's my time. And so I made that contract with my guide that I didn't want that. Now I allow them to touch me, because I want to know, there might be a specific piece of evidence, for example, that I know somebody died of a heart attack or congestive heart failure or lung or respiratory. So I allow that to occur. And they do that within my body. I use my body as a barometer.
What does it
Um,
feel like when they touch you?
well, it can be very subtle. It can be very, very subtle and loving. And it can be ever so gentle. That's why you have to use your body as a barometer, because it's like it's so subtle that sometimes you don't even know that it is you could ignore that piece of evidence. Like I might get a little tap on the finger, or they might move my eyes towards a necklace that what we call the sitter, the person that I'm reading for, and they might be wearing a necklace of their loved one, and it's very, very subtle. But when there is you can smell smoke. I mean, that comes through if they were a smoker, or all of a sudden I'll cough. I can also tell if a person is an alcoholic because my throat will get raw. And these are things that I've worked out with my guides. Or all of a sudden, I remember doing a reading for this one woman where I couldn't even catch my breath. My heart was hurting so bad. I said, "Who died of a massive heart attack?" I mean, it was pretty severe. But the key is that it stops as soon as we identify the spirit. So it's not like it goes through the reading. It's just something that is a piece of evidence to identify the person who has crossed over. But again, it's very subtle. And I even had this one spirit one time, I was doing a reading and he flicked me on the head like this. You know how, like, when you're a kid and they flick you on the head, and I felt it. And I said, well, he's doing this to me. And they said, oh my God, he did that all the time, but it wasn't like this big thunk. It was just a little tap, that I felt. And, so it's just really interesting, and they do it in such a loving manner, and they do it because this is something that is a piece of evidence. And I'll give you another example that happened to me when I was gifting a reading to someone. Her father was coming through, and I heard Henry, the name Henry, and I said, "Do you know a Henry?" And she said, "No." And a lot of times when people hear no, they start to drop their connection. And the key is to keep your connection. And so what I said, I asked myself, well, what does Henry mean to me? And her dad was standing right here. And I said, well, my dad's middle name was Henry. So I asked her, I said, is someone in your family carrying your dad's middle name as their name? And she goes, oh my God, yes. My daughter has my dad's middle name as her name. And so they use associations and they use it for me. So I know. So I gave it literally, you see, Henry. Do you know a Henry? No. And then I asked myself, well, what does Henry mean to me? Well, that was my dad's middle name, and her dad was standing right here. So that's kind of some of the things, and there are nuances to it. And as you learn, Spirit uses things over and over again. So it helps you build those things out so you become better and better. And I work with my students from that standpoint to help them develop all that, because I can actually see where they're at. I see what their dominant clair is, and then I work with that, and then I try to help them develop the other clairs out. And the more mediums we have, the better, I say. So yeah.
Are there negative entities out there that you have to be careful with and not, get involved with them?
Yeah, that's a really good question, Jeff. I don't want to say that they're negative. I want to say that they're lower vibrational. Okay. And what I mean by that, and there's no reason to fear them. They can be trapped here, yes. Some of them are, believe it or not, have had, that are alcoholics or that are drug addicts, and they're still attracted to that. And so they want to grab onto that. And so there are people that do get stuck here, and I've done a lot of spirit rescues as well. But the key is that you have to stay in the love vibration. You have to call that in. You have to make a decision, and that's what we work on a lot. Is what does it feel like with unconditional love? And we bring that in. What is it that you unconditionally love? And I want you to bring that in your heart. And when you do that, then and you practice that, uh I've been around spirits that have been extremely angry and negative, but I do not go to fear. That's the worst thing you can do, because they feed off of that fear, and they utilize that energy to do poltergeist activity. That's how they move things and so forth. But if you go to this area that is very calm, you can talk to them. And what I do is I get them in the love vibration. So everybody on this earth has had something that they've loved, whether it's their mother or, an animal or a place. And I get them to start to think about that. Now, when that happens, you can feel the energy shift in the room. That's why it's important to understand and master your own energy signature. Once you do, and you feel that, you feel the calmness come over. And then I start to talk to them. And for example, I had this one guy, he was really angry, like a motorcycle guy and so forth. And he was in spirit and he was wreaking havoc in this home. And I started talking to him, and I asked him, what is it that he loved? You know, was it his mother and so forth? And you felt the energy shift. What happened was he showed me that he was murdered. And he showed me the gun, and he was confused, and he was wreaking havoc in this household. And this was a very unique situation, because what happens when you get them in the love vibration, you start to talk to them about how much they are loved, how much they are not judged, that they don't belong here, and how beautiful it is on the other side, and that everything that they love is on the other side, and it's so beautiful. And when you create that vibration, a light opens up, and you tell them just to go to the light. And this particular guy started to go up to the light. And when he did that, he started to come back down. And I had never seen that before. And I started kind of to freak out. And he came down and he said, "Thank you." And he went back up. And so it's just amazing. There is no death, but there are people that get, or spirit, there's earthbound spirits that, everybody's freaking out about. And it's not about the fear consciousness. We have to stay in the love vibration, not only to, really uh, try to stay, kind of grasp our sovereignty and our freedom, and so forth. But it's also about the love vibration and pushing that outward, and then also working with the lower vibrational entities to get them to this place where they belong. And because and it's just so beautiful when that happens. I've done hundreds of spirit rescues, and each and every one of them are so beautiful. And it's about being calm, and it's about being loving, and their energy shifts to match yours.
Now, earlier you mentioned you were in Mount Shasta, and
Mhm.
that's also a UFO hotspot. Did you
Yeah.
have any UFO visitations or see any or anything of that nature?
Yeah, in Mount Shasta, I did. That was really a unique experience. So uh, before I went there, there's these beings called the Telosians that live in Mount Shasta, and they're former Lemurian, which it's kind of like, we're European, but we're really American, right? We don't really identify being European anymore. We're American, so it's kind of like that with the Telosians. And they have this they have all these wonderful gifts, right? And you can't be in your 3D body to go into the city of Telos. You have to actually meditate in. And when I was there, well, first of all, 2 weeks before I was there, all of a sudden, and they say that they're like not, 8, 9 feet tall. And I woke up in the middle of the night, and there was a being that was like 9 feet tall standing in my bedroom. And he was very loving, and he was just checking me out. It was really quite interesting. And I acknowledged him, and I sent him love, and I didn't know why he was there. But I found out when I got to the mountain, they asked me, "Did you have anything strange happen before you got here?" Well, that was one thing. And then the night, and I really wanted to see a UFO, because of the mountain and, the clouds and everything. So I went to bed that night, and I hadn't gone on the mountain yet. I had just arrived. And I actually, I astral traveled, and they took me on the mountain. And I was with that guy that was standing in my room, and there were three saucers, and he pointed up, and I was like at the top of the mountain, but I was there in astral travel capacity, and it wasn't a dream. It was like, I was in the state where I was standing there with him on the mountain, looking at these things. Like, they gave me my wish, which was really cool. And then there's many vortexes and portals on the mountain, And it's truly a transformative experience if you have a guide to take you to all these different vortexes and portals and to experience that. And it was just incredible. They actually measured our aura, and when we started out, my aura was 8 feet, and then by the time we were done, by the day we spent 6 hours on the mountain, they measured it again, and my aura was 28 feet wide.
Wow.
That was kind of cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And talking about visitations, I actually had a visitation way before this as well. In my room, in my bedroom, it was in the middle of the night. And I was a medium, and this was very strange. And Jeff, I haven't told anybody about this, only a few people, because it's, you don't want to talk about aliens, right? But all of a sudden, I heard like 3 or 4 clicks. I heard click, 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 like something was being dialed in. And I woke up and I looked over, and there was like, um, I want to say it looked like a Pleiadian mother. And I was frozen. I was paralyzed. I couldn't move. And I got afraid. This is one of the few times I ever got afraid. And she opened my mouth, and she opened her mouth, and there was something, it was a light that was extracted. She was extracting something out of me. I don't know what it was. And I was fully awake when this was happening. I remember it. And then I got scared. And what happened was my mother, who's in spirit, all of a sudden where my dresser was, there was a door that appeared, and my mother opened it, and she stood in the doorway while this was happening. And they probably knew that I would calm down if my mother was there because I trusted her so much. And so I kind of laid there and let this happen. I don't know how long it was. It was probably a minute, where there was just this yellow light was just being extracted out of me. And when she was done, the door slammed with my mother. She left, and this entity, this Pleiadian, disappeared. And then all of a sudden I could move, and I was like crawling up the headboard, right? Because I didn't know what was happening or whatever. But I can tell you the immediate effect of whatever she did to me, uh, I had a level of calmness that I hadn't had in years. I had a level of anxiety that was kind of underlying all the time. So whatever she did to me, she took that away. Energetically, I don't know if it was a block. I don't know what she did, but it was gone. And and I know that they came with so much love. So it was just, I don't think that anybody else has had that type of experience. It was just very different, but it was a positive one, although I didn't realize that it was a positive one happening at the time.
Do you think your aunt was involved with the ETs as well?
Oh, yeah, she was. hmm She told me to focus on Orion's belt, and that's all she's told me. And I don't know specifically what that means. I started doing research around that. I started looking at engineers and astronomers and archaeologists and all that, with regard to the planets and so forth. But yes, she was. But it's not something that was actually talked about because she was in a spiritualist community. So there's guardrails about what's appropriate, right? And what is discussed at that point. But there was definitely uh, a knowing, and I certainly knew it. And I've had other experiences since where um, I was kind of like in this lucid dream state, and I looked up and I saw all these ships in the sky, and there were so many ships in the sky, and when I looked up, all of a sudden I was transport, and they were not very high up because there was I felt like they were in the realm of, the oxygen, where they weren't very far up at all. They were just above. above us, and it was almost so many ships you could almost walk from ship to ship. And I was then put on the bow of the ship where this entity, this, extraterrestrial met me and telepathically spoke to me, and he said to me, will you help us be the voice? And what I saw was some like chaos and confusion and like everybody being scared and so forth. And that he showed me that my voice, because it's calming, that would be utilized to help calm, and that they would give me the words to say. And I asked him, would my family be okay? And he said yes. And I said, okay, then I will do it when it's time. And that's another experience I had. So I do believe that it doesn't matter whether the governments actually reveal them to us, because I feel like the revealing is happening individually. And so it's just going to be a knowing. It's like, yeah, we knew it all along, you know?
Earlier, you mentioned that you have a mailing list. How does
Mhm.
somebody get on that?
Yeah, on my website, I have the heartfeltmedium.com, or also or RachelleGehman.com. And there's a place where you just put in it pops up as a little pop-up window, and you can put your name in there. And then I send out emails weekly on the development circle. And then any other information like a newsletter or something, or classes, I send out as well, so they can stay in touch and know what's happening. And everybody is welcome to the development circle, even if they just want to receive, because we open it up. And the reason is we can sit there and read each other, right? And the point is you get to know each other. And it's like we need new people to come in and to be open and who want to receive. And it gives us an opportunity to practice. So, yeah.
If people want to find out more about your book, should they go to your website or Amazon?
Both. It's on my website. It's on Amazon.com and Barnes and Noble.
All
Yep.
right. If people want to ask you questions, are you open to that? And if so, how should they do it?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And yes, I'm open. I love to answer questions. There is a contact form on my website, or they can contact me at Rachelle. My email address is Rachelle@RachelleGehman.com. And I'll respond. Sometimes it takes me 24 hours or whatever, but yeah, I always do my best to get to everybody. And anybody that is looking, I mean, I have people that are very interested, that are on the mediumship journey. You know, the other thing too, Jeff, that is really important, I think I want to mention, is that you hear a lot about protection. Okay. You got to protect yourself. And I don't believe in protection. And the reason I don't is because if we're in the fear consciousness and the universe is a mirror, then like attract like, right? But if we are at the point where we stay in the love vibration, then we're going to attract that love. And so it's not where we're going to be in a situation where um, we're going to be harmed, especially if we're pushing you know, our light outward. There's a level of spiritual maturity with that. And, I'm okay with people protecting themselves if they need that. I would prefer them to think of it as a boundary, okay, and how they want to stay in the love vibration. That's a little bit different than the protection. And being able to direct energy, like when somebody comes at you with anger, direct their anger. You don't have to absorb it. Direct it to Mother Earth for healing. And I always send everything away with healing. You don't have to absorb it. And you just go to neutral and you decide how you're going to respond. And so, getting back to protection, that's kind of the way that I feel about it. And, I would prefer people to put boundaries so they can stay in the love vibration versus going to the fear consciousness.
Do you have a YouTube channel?
I do. It's the Heartfelt Medium channel. Yeah. I don't have a lot out there, but I'm working to build that up, and I have meditations and so forth, guided meditations. One of the things that I want people to realize is if the reason I focus on trauma and getting rid of the trauma is so that more of your gifts can come in. When we release the energy and all the trauma that has happened in our lives, or even generational trauma that we don't even have the stories behind, if you release that, more of your gifts can come in. And so some of the things that I have out there are guided meditations.
Do you have anything else that you're working on that you want people to know about?
Yeah, thanks for that. I actually have an advanced mediumship class. Oh, I have a beginning mediumship class, but I also have an advanced mediumship class, and it's 8 weeks. It's self-paced. And there are at least 3 to 5 modules out there, and they're about 15 minutes each. But it is something where we go through all of this. And it really is structured for as a transformational experience. A lot of people are looking for resources and tools. And of course, you can get resources and tools on the internet. You can, my book is full of them. But if we can release the trauma, it's more of a transformational experience, so more of our gifts can come in. And that was the purpose behind uh, doing that 8-week advanced mediumship class. And the other thing too is that there are modules out there that I will be breaking down so the average person can utilize them. Uh, for example, mastering your own energy signature. That's key. There's so many mediums that haven't done that yet. And so I think this is a tool that anyone should apply to their lives. And why just hide it in the mediumship umbrella? It's something that I'm going to be moving out. So if people want to, uh, experience that and learn how to do that, instead of being empathic and absorbing all this stuff and being victimized, become empowered, master your own energy signature. And so I'm going to put that out there as well. It's just, basically just moving those things over so they can have that. And that'll be coming out. Now I will announce that in my emails so they can sign up and they'll receive that.
Rachelle, before we wrap it up, can you leave us with one last positive message?
Oh, wow. Yeah. I just feel like claim your sovereignty. And how do we do that? And it's about removing the fear consciousness. Uh, you know, the fear has been around us and it was very prominent since COVID. And if we can really take a look at that, start asking questions around that, really realizing that fear is something where our, our consciousness is being captured. And if we can release the fear consciousness, uh, and claim our own sovereignty and stay in the love vibration, and when things happen, really notice our response. There is a observer in each and every one of us, and instead of being triggered, go to neutral. uh, you can also place your hand on your heart and just immediately say, I choose the love. And when you do that, it just like stops everything and it calms everything down. And so just practicing these little things day in and day out can change the way you respond to the world. And when you change the way you respond to the world, the universe is going to respond in kind. So I guess that's the message that I would have for everybody.
Rachelle, thank you for your message, and thank you for being my guest.
Thank you so much, Jeff. It was such a pleasure.
Thanks for watching the JeffMara podcast. I really appreciate you. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. And if you do, there are loyalty badges and other perks depending on your level of membership. All you need to do is click the join button underneath the video to find out more. Thank you for your support.